Hey, hello, and welcome to chapter 25 of the book, The Great CEO Within by Mochary. This chapter is dedicated to feedback and giving and receiving feedback. So, on receiving feedback, it says frequent transparent feedback is critical for building a strong culture and a thriving business. Feedback is instrumental for building trust. Without trust, communication breaks down. Building a culture of feedback and transparency starts and ends with the founders. Building a culture of starts and ends with the founders. Hmm. As I think about my country right now, and this is unarguable, you could hear politicians argue about, oh, the people should be the one who are not corrupt. Like you should start from the bottom up. Um, the lack of corruption should start from the bottom, that is everybody, and then flow into leadership. But if we apply the same principle, it's simply saying building a culture of feedback and transparency within a political society starts and ends with politicians. So that would be very nice. It just cuts the argument. Like there's no further discussion is required. So how does this work in practice? That's what the rest of this part of the chapter about receiving feedback and giving feedback should or would speak to. So it says critical feedback in particular should be cherished. Your team members are in the trenches every day. They have knowledge about the company that you do not have. Only if open Only if you open the door to negative feedback will your team feel comfortable giving it. Think about it from the other side. It can be quite scary to criticize someone who has power over you. You might feel you're risking your job. This is an important context. So if somebody is really scared of talking to you because they're risking their jobs and they eventually manage to tell you something that bothers them, then that person has put something on the line. There's a greater chance of truth. I think there's a greater chance of truth. That's not generic, so to speak. Maybe that is my subjective opinion, but I think if someone is risking their jobs to give you negative feedback as the employer, then maybe there's a drop of truth in it that is worth considering. If you do not proactively collect feedback, you will quickly find the following problems emerge. You quickly find the following problems emerge, and is alludes to three kinds of problems. One, you'll be in the dark about your company's problems. Ben Horowitz says that good culture is like the old RIP routing protocol. Bad news travels fast, good news travels slow. If every time your team brings up an issue you react defensively, they will soon stop bringing that valuable information to you, and you will crumble in your ivory tower. The second problem is that operations will grind to a halt. When people aren't able to share things openly, communication breaks down. When communication breaks down, operations slow. The problem only gets worse as your company grows. And as it grows, it becomes even harder to change that culture. Problem number three, if you do not proactively collect feedback, is your best talent will leave you. This one affects the bottom line eventually. A players have no patience for defensiveness or amateurishness. If you aren't mature enough to listen to your people, face your problems, and work on fixing them, your A players will find the founders who are. Therefore, if you are to receive real honest feedback and improve, keep your team communicating. You must make the effort to seek it out. Do so using the three A's to receiving feedback. Number one, A is ask for it. Whatever you ask, you shall receive. Make sure your team understands that giving you negative feedback will not be punished but cherished. It is important to explicitly say this to them, preferably in a one-on-one setting. When asking for feedback on the company in general, it is useful to ask, if you were CEO, what would you change? You can do this in person or through an anonymous survey. When asking for feedback about himself as a manager, Lachi Broom of Stripe asks, what feedback are you afraid to give me because you think it might hurt my feelings? My feelings. Please tell me that. So number one, you want to ask. Number two, you want to acknowledge it. Number two, you want to acknowledge the feedback you have been given. Confirm that you heard it correctly by saying, I think I heard you say. Then you summarize what the person said, summarize what they said. Then say, is that right? If they say yes, you're done. If they say no, ask them to say it again until you are able to summarize it correctly. And I think this is also the way he described feedback much earlier in one of the chapters. It says when someone tells you something, when someone tells me something, I want to echo it to them to make them feel heard and to be sure that I got the detail correctly. So I think this is very practical and very useful. Then acknowledging feedback is the single most powerful tool that I know of to create trust and connection. People want to feel heard, and they can only know that you heard them if you actually say back their words to them. Number 3A, appreciate it. Someone is risking their job by giving you that feedback, so at least appreciate it. Don't interrupt your team member. Don't give excuses. Your job is to listen and try your utmost to understand. Say thank you for the precious gifts that they are giving. Only once you understand the issue and you've repeated it back to them and they know that you've understood their issues can you initiate a conversation about potential solutions. Number four, accept it. Number four, accept it or not. But number four is around acceptance. Accept or not. Declare whether or not you accept it. If you do, then number five is compelling. You must act on it. If you accept the feedback, then you must act on the feedback. Go create an action item that will effectively address the feedback. Put a due date on it, do it, and then let this feedback giver know that you did the action. When you do, you will have completed the feedback loop, and the feedback giver will then have gained trust that you actually want feedback and are committed to improving. Publish this feedback and action item widely to the organization. Only then will your team members feel confident that their voices are heard and safe enough to give you further feedback. So, on giving feedback, that one was about receiving feedback. Now that you've received feedback, give feedback. When giving feedback, it is critical to use a two-way communication method. In person is best, video is okay. Audio call is least good. This is so that you can see the person's reaction. If they get defensive and angry, you will be able to see that and say, I didn't intend to make you feel angry. My intent was to be helpful. This is good. I didn't intend to make you feel angry. My intent was to be helpful. If, on the other hand, you use a one-way communication method, email, text, voicemail, then the recipient can easily become defensive and angry without you realizing it. And because you don't notice the anger, you won't be able to address it. Unaddressed, that anger will soon turn into resentment towards you. Therefore, do not use, do not use a one-way communication tool for feedback. Okay, there is one exception to this rule. The exception is if you already know the person to be open, curious, and desirous of critical feedback. That's the only exception that is permitted to the rule. that shouldn't use one-way communication tool for giving feedback. Here is a template for providing good feedback, adapted from the book Nonviolent Communication. This book again being recommended by Marshall Rosenberg. Ask for permission. Yeah, in the receiving side, we said ask for feedback. So in this one, ask for permission. This is really good. So you don't go about feeling like you are the giver of feedbacks. Give the receiver a little heads up of what's coming. It can be enough to say, I have something to communicate to you. Is now a good time? I need to practice this in my personal relationship. There's one particular relationship that comes to mind that I need to practice this on. State the trigger behavior or event. State the trigger behavior or event to be, try to be factual. When you are late to meetings, for example, as opposed to interpretive, when you disrespect me. So you can interpret lateness to disrespect. Like there was one CEO I had, I think it occurred about 3 times within a short period. I received I didn't receive the call, but my phone call interrupted the communication, or was distracting the communication because my phone was ringing and I was talking to her, and she was really pissed off about it. And then she said I was disrespecting her by having my phone ring, and I just apologized for it. So my mind, I wanted to say, well, I didn't know the phone was going to ring, you know, but I just apologized, and it reminds me of something else. Whenever you're having meetings, you want to keep your phone turned, like the face of your phone. You want the face of your phone turned down, so that it is obvious to the person to the other person you're talking to in the room that you are truly present with them. Because if you have your phone in hand and you're looking at your phone while the other person is talking, then you're not giving the right vibes in the moment. Then number 3 says, state how that trigger behavior makes you feel in terms of anger, sadness, or fear feeling. This is perhaps the hardest part for many founders to do. Talking about your feelings might not be something you are used to, so it might be challenging at first. However, doing so is crucial for the other person to truly understand where you are coming from and to take your feedback to heart. State the thoughts, opinions, and judgments story you have around the situation. That is the next one, the fourth one. After stating the trigger, behavior, or event, you state your how that trigger makes you feel. And then next to stating how that trigger makes you feel, you state your thoughts, opinions, and judgments, or your story around the situation. This is more like an interpretation. Yeah. Then number 5, you make a request of what you would like to see. This is where you're asking for the change. It says try to frame it as positive action. Do X rather than negative action. Don't do Y. Try to frame it as positive. This framing is important. I need to use this framing in my in my personal relationship with my wife. I need to use this framing. Try to frame it as positive. Do X, and rather than don't do Y. So I'm going to highlight this one. Frame it as positive. Okay. Ask if the person accepts the feedback and the request. If yes, hold them accountable to it. If they accept it, hold them accountable. Now, it says in summary, giving and receiving frequent and transparent feedback may be painful at first. Often, when companies start implementing this, it brings up a lot of underlying resentment and repressed issues. However, if you hang in there, you will find the amount of in you'll find the amount and intensity of feedback diminishes substantially, because as you're giving and receiving feedback, you're addressing the issues. So over time, the intensity reduces, and your team will noticeably be happier and more productive. So next video, we're going to start with organizational structure. That's it on this video. Thanks for watching. God bless.